What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we analyze the 30th November edition of the Red Brand and look at the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know, including Nia Jax's latest in-ring disaster, Jeff Hardy is injured after a scary spot on last night's Raw, and a big blunder on Raw regarding Retribution. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. As always, we won't waste your time recapping the matches, but we will take a look at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly from last night's show. As always, we start off with the good as number 1, AJ Styles shines. AJ Styles' win last night in the triple threat showed why he does well as an opportunistic performer whose wrestling skills are complemented by finely honed heel skills. Styles is the type of opponent who presents a true challenge, but whose real advantage is his ring generalship, where he can pull the proverbial rabbit out of the hat and score a win. Adding to his value as a heel is a cocky nature and fondness for running his mouth, as seen when he was talking trash to Drew McIntyre even while AJ's bodyguard carried him away. It looked like a parent dragging off his child as they complained they couldn't get any ice cream. But Styles knows just how much vitriol to unload to anger the fans enough to make them want to see his opponent beat him down, unlike Sami Zayn, whose trash talk often crosses the line into go-away heat. While Matt Riddle and Keith Lee fans are no doubt disappointed that their wrestler didn't win, AJ Styles is a good opponent for Drew McIntyre and a change of pace from his past feud against Randy Orton. Add in AJ's bodyguard almost, and Drew has a formidable opponent for TLC. Number 2, Drew's massive sword. Calm down, sword. Now, we've gushed over how cool and badass Drew's new entrance is with the addition of his grandfather's, actually Vince McMahon's sword. However, it's the type of entrances that could quickly lose its appeal, so we humbly suggest that WWE reserve it for pay-per-views as a special entrance. Number 3, Mr. Money in the Bank is Mr. Reliable. Once again, The Miz proved that he isn't just Mr. Money in the Bank, he's Mr. Reliable, a wrestler who always puts on entertaining matches and has the right mix of charisma and humor to both antagonize and amuse the WWE Universe. Last night's Raw saw The Miz and Morrison set things up for the tag match between themselves and Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, then tease a Money in the Bank cash-in after laying out Drew McIntyre. The Miz has been on the WWE's main roster, and while he's never enjoyed lasting main event success, he remains firmly fixed in the upper card and is a classic example of a go-to guy who can always be called upon for forwarding an important angle or getting a wrestler over. Number 4, TLC is actually looking good. This year's TLC pay-per-view is shaping up to be a good card, well, at least on paper, a pleasant change from many of 2020's shows. The WWE's often haphazard booking often leads to equally haphazard pay-per-view cards as the company scrambles to put things together just days before the show. Not so this time around, as they already booked AJ Styles vs Drew McIntyre for the championship, a match which should stand out. Add in the rumored match like Kevin Owens vs Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, Randy Orton vs The Fiend, and Asuka and Lana vs Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, and the WWE could have a great ending to 2020. Well, at least in terms of a good pay-per-view. And number 5, a satisfying Symphony of Destruction. The Symphony of Destruction match between Jeff Hardy and Elias was a satisfying finish to a feud that failed to live up to its potential, but had some entertaining moments. Blowing their feud off with a gimmick match was a good way to salvage what should have been an engaging program, with Elias's electrocution spot being the type of over-the-top action fans accept from matches like this. Unfortunately, while Jeff may have won the match, they may have lost Hardy in the process, as we're about to see. But that was the good. What about the bad? As number 1, Jeff is taking dangerous and unnecessary risks. Now, the Symphony of Destruction match, while entertaining, saw Jeff Hardy take a pointless bump when he performed a swanton bomb from the ring post, putting Elias through a table, but with Jeff banging the back of his head against the steel steps. Now, while Jeff wasn't busted open, he was definitely banged up. Just how much is something we'll examine later in the news. Jeff Hardy has been on fire since his return to the WWE earlier this year, but it seems like wrestling's charismatic enigma is trying too hard to show he can still go in the ring, risking far too many dangerous spots. At 43, Hardy is not only taking sick bumps that have the potential to finish his career, but he's taken them far too frequently, and even worse, in television matches where the risk/reward factor clearly states he should scale things back. Number 2, Drew McIntyre not selling 3 finishers. Last night's Raw featured Drew McIntyre performing his Superman act a little bit too much. While Drew has been shown as a formidable force in the WWE, having him no-sell 3 finishes has him straying into Hulk Hogan territory, with fans having no reason to think the WWE Champion can be defeated. The idea of Drew taking a phenomenal forearm, Starship Pain, and skull-crushing finale without breaking a sweat has us wondering whether Drew's theme should be real American. Number 3. 2 terrible women's matches. The WWE may want to start downplaying its much-hyped Women's Revolution or change the name to Women's Revolting Wrestling, judging by 2 of last night's matches. First, Dana Brooke vs. Reckoning was a match that belonged on main event, not only because of the lack of star power, but because of the lack of good wrestling. Even worse, the WWE continued to tarnish Raw Women's Champion Asuka's reputation as one of its best wrestlers by putting her alongside Lana against Women's Tag Team Champion Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. While the WWE may feel Asuka can elevate Lana, and Baszler do likewise with Jax, both the Empress of Tomorrow and the Queen of Spades are looking weak due to their tag teams with 2 stars with little to offer and much to learn. Now, there was nothing downright ugly about last night's show, which featured some real filler in the form of 2 Retribution matches, but also a number of good matches including the triple threat match and the main event tag match. Add in the opening segment with Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss, and Raw closed out November with one of its better shows of late. But what did you guys think of Raw? Let us know in the comments down below. Now let's move on to the news. Our first big story is Jeff Hardy suffering a concussion. Now it remains to be seen whether Jeff Hardy's sick and unnecessary bump against Elias has injured Jeff. Brian Alvarez discussed the aftermath during Wrestling Observer Radio, saying, "The word I got was that he was okay. I don't know what that means. I've heard that about a lot of people that have been banged in the head. I think to a degree going through the table did slow him down, but he still banged the back of his head on the steps." Meltzer also chimed in saying, "He hit the back of his head and he grabbed it right away and he was walking around like he was hurting real bad. That wasn't a sell. He was looking to see if he split his head open, which it didn't appear that he did, but I heard that there was kind of an expectation that he had a concussion, but he hadn't been diagnosed as having one because that wouldn't come as yet anyway." Wrestling site Fightful Select is also reporting all indications are that Jeff Hardy was okay after his nasty swanton spot. Hardy jumped from the ring post to ringside onto Elias, who was on the table. Hardy barely cleared the steps by the post. And Jeff told the WWE after the match, "Wow, my first ever Symphony of Destruction. First time ever, but I hope that's the last one I ever have. That swanton was no joke at the end, you know? I went straight up in the air, crashed straight down. I'm okay though, it looked a lot worse than it actually felt. And we'll provide an update if it turns out Hardy is injured." Next up, WWE kicked out Chyna in 2015. Now, the story of Joanie Laura's tragic rise and fall has been discussed many times, including ourselves who did a Final Bell episode, but a new story has surfaced about wrestling's 9th wonder of the world returning to the WWE in 2015. According to Chyna's former manager, he and Chyna went to the WWE headquarters over royalty payments they felt the WWE owed Chyna. We stand out there and I say, "Hello, my name is Anthony Anzaldo. I'm here to see somebody in business and in legal in regards to whether or not my client who's standing here next to me, Chyna, might happen to be owed some royalty. I don't know if she is or not, but I'd like to find out." Within 15 seconds, there was 5 black suits in the lobby, all men and all saying to me, "We're very sorry, but you guys are persona non grata and you're gonna have to leave." Anzaldo claims they asked to see Vince McMahon and were told point blank to leave the building immediately, which they did. Next up was Retribution's Unmasking Unplanned. A Raw's match between Dana Brooke and Retribution's Reckoning, aka Mia Yim, led to a spot where Brooke's opponent was unmasked and Brooke scored a surprise win. Mustafa Ali was furious with Reckoning, telling her there's no room in the Rogue faction for failure. However, was Reckoning supposed to be unmasked or was it an accident? Former WWE creative Vince Russo thinks it was a blunder and that the unmasking led to WWE hastily changing the match's finish. Russo told Sportskeeda's Chris Featherstone, "I'm telling you because there is no other way you can make sense out of it. That's the only way you can make sense. She lost the mask. Vince got freaking pissed off. He's sitting there at gorilla position and they are buzzing the referee to change the finish. There's no other way that makes sense. No way." If the finish was an audible call by Reckoning's accidental unmasking, it should be interesting to see how the story plays out. Do you guys think the finish was planned? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, Nia Jax's latest blunder. Now, we are pleased to report that Nia Jax didn't actually injure anyone during her match last night alongside Shayna Baszler. However, Jax continues to show why fans think she needs to return to wrestling school, as she blew a spot when she fell through the ropes for no apparent reason. Now, in Jax's defense, it appears Lana was supposed to pull the ring ropes down, leading to Jax falling through, but that didn't happen. Still, Jax continuing her fall made for an embarrassing spot. She did at least see some humor in it, as she tweeted, "I was charging at little Jimmy, he had it coming." And finally, fans at the Royal Rumble. Last but not least, is the WWE going to bring back fans for this year's Royal Rumble? According to WrestleVotes, internally, WWE is said to want a decision on whether fans are permitted for the Royal Rumble by January 7th, with a possible announcement of sorts coming that weekend. Sources states odds are 50-50 right now, important month ahead. This is a huge question, as it could give the WWE an inclination of whether it will have fans in attendance for WrestleMania 37. Regrettably, the uncertainty caused by the pandemic and the political response to it makes it likely they won't know until very shortly before the 2021 Rumble. But there you have it, guys, the good, the bad and the downright ugly from this week's Raw, as well as the wildest wrestling news stories. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.